Hey everyone, welcome back to my Dev Web App channel. In this video, I'll provide and explain the solutions to 5 common React Live coding interview questions. Each task will be implemented in a separate component. The first challenge is a counter app. Let's take a look at the design. As you can see, we have some headers and also we have a count. Initially, it will be 0 and also we have two buttons. The first button is with a plus sign, and pressing the button will increment the count by 1. And the second button is red with minus sign, and pressing the button will decrement the count by 1. And let's go to the code and build our application. I launched my Visual Studio Code and now I'm going to create new app and will provide command npm create beta at latest. And I need to provide project name and it will be React interview tasks. Okay, and select React and JavaScript. Now I can navigate to my folder with the command and install dependencies with command npm install. Okay, and now I can run my dev server with command npm run dev and open it in the browser. Okay, and we have some initial code, and I'm going to clean up my application. Now I can hide this panel and remove all this code, and will provide header with text React interview challenges. Okay, and also I can remove all this use state, use effect, and let's check. And we have our header. I need to fix it. Challenges. Okay, and now I can go to app CSS and remove all styles. And I will leave styles only for root element and also go to index CSS and also will remove styles. I will remove all styles and also from media. And I'm going to change place items to justified content and let's check. Okay, and we have our header. And now I'm going to create a folder for components and we'll build every task as separate component. Okay, and I'm going to add new folder and create components. And first component will be counter. We'll add counter JSX and also I need counter CSS file for my styles. Okay, we'll add some styles, but for interview they are not required, but I'm going to add them to have a nice application. So, and now I can add functional component. It will start with function, and name will be counter, and return some JSX. I'll use React fragment and will return some JSX. And let me add h2 tag and provide my first app and add name counter app. And now I can create container and add class name counter. And inside container we'll have button with minus, and also I'll add pen and will provide 0 initially, and also add button with plus sign. And now we can export our function and add it to our JSX. And let me add import my counter, import counter, and I'll add it below h1 tag. Let's check what we have. Okay, and we have our header and also our count and plus and minus. And let me add some styles. I'm going to import my counter CSS. Import from this counter CSS, and I will add some styles, and I'm going to add some styles for my container. I will make it display flex and also provide justify content by center and align items by center. Okay, and let's check. So actually we cannot see any difference because we haven't added classes to our buttons and also to our count. Let me add class name count here. And for button, let's add class name decrement. And for that, I'll add class name increment. Okay, and now I can provide my classes in CSS. And for count, I'll increase font size and make it 1.5 rem. And also add some padding like 0.5 rem. And also 1 rem for left right. Okay, and let's define some width like 2 rem, and let's check. Okay, and as you can see, we have our paddings, and let's add more styles, and I'll add container name because we are using plain CSS. I'll add styles for button, and I'm going to add some padding like 0.7 rem for top bottom and 1.5 rem for left right, and also add some margin 1 rem, and add font size like 1.5 rem. Let me change here to 2 rem. Okay, and also make cursor pointer, and also remove borders, and also let's add some border radius 5 pixels, and let's check. Okay, we have our buttons, and one more thing that we can change background color for decrement and increment. For decrement, I'm going to add background color to make it red, and let me add color over pseudo class and make background color dark red, and also I will change background color. And probably we need to add our container because I'm going to build several apps here, and we'll use plain CSS, and also we need to change class name and provide styles for increment, and we'll add green, and on hovering we'll make dark green. Okay, and let's check. And as you can see, we have our colors, and when I hover over the button, the color is changing. And also we can place color, apply color white. Okay. And now we can implement our React code, and often you need only implement React code and some JSX and styles will be provided. So, and now I need to add state variable, and I'll use hook use state, and initially we will have 0, and as you can see, use state returns a stateful value and a function to update it. And I need some variables to store the data that use state hook returns me, and I'll use count, and as function will be set count. And now I can place here count instead of 0. Let's check. And now we have 0 here. And now for decrement, I'll implement function on click event handler, and will call my set count and provide count plus 1. And also I can add the same function for increment, the same event handler. Here I need -1, and let's check what I have. Let me refresh and press plus, and I have incremented count, and by pressing this button the value is decremented, and it works, but it's not a great solution because we just used count, and some interviewers might ask you cons of this solution, and so we used count, but count might be any value, and we not always will have correct values. But in our case, we'll have correct values, but for some cases, this approach will not work. And for set count, we need to provide function that will get first count, and then decrease 1 from that pref count, and the same we need to do for our class, and use pref count, and this will safely update our count because we retrieved it based on the state. And let's check again. I'm going to refresh the page and press plus, and as you can see, the count was increased. And again, and press minus, and the count was decreased. I can refresh and try one more time. Today I'm going to provide and explain the solution to the coding interview task that would sound like fetch the data from an external API and display it in the list. It's a common coding interview challenge. Let's take a look at the design. As you can see, I have some headers and the data about books, and the data was fetched from the external API, and as an API I used Faker API and books, and also I'm going to use Fetch API in my coding. And let's go to the code and build our task. I launched my Visual Studio Code and opened React Interview Tasks project that I've created previously, and now I'm going to run terminal and start dev server with command npm run dev, and open my project in browser, and I have the first challenge counter up, and now I'm going just to change the component, and let me hide the panel, and inside components folder I'll create new file, and it will be new component, and the component will be books list JSX, and also I need books list CSS for styles. Okay, and let me create functional component. I'm going to export it and create function and provide name books list, and let's return some JSX. I'll create div for container, and inside div we'll provide h2 tag and some text like books list, and also, and let's check. First of all, we need to add our component into app.jsx. I'll change to books list and also add it here, and let's check. Okay, and we have our header, and now we can fetch the data, and for that I need hook use effect, and as you can see, import was added, and for use effect I need to provide function that will be called after dependencies were changed, and let me provide empty function, and as dependencies I'll use empty array, and the function inside use effect will be called after component was mounted. So we'll call it only once, and now I can implement my function, and I'm going to add new function for fetching data, fetch data, and I need to use async because I'll use await inside code, and I'll use fetch, and I need to provide input, and will be URL, and let's check our endpoint, and as endpoint I'll provide books from Faker API, and it will provide me some fake data, and I can use it during implementation or probably during interview. And now I need to save the response from the API into some variable, and I'll use X response. And also I need to wait for result. And now we need to add some state variable where we will store the response, the data about books, and for that I need hook use state, and as you can see we have imports. I can just simplify it, and now I can provide initial value, and initially I'll have empty array, and as you can see use state returns the function and also the value, and I need to save it into variables, and I'll use books, and function will be set books. Okay, and now inside our fetch data function, I can make console log response, and I need to provide my variable. Okay, and now we need to call fetch data function, and let's check what I have so far. I'm going to open developer tools, and go to console, and refresh the page. And as you can see, we have a response, and we have OK, and status 200, and also we can check network tab in developer tools, and here we also have some headers. You can check all, and also we have in preview we have data, and as you can see the API returned 10 books, and we have details, and we can check them, and also you can see the example of the response inside the docs, and I believe we have the same response as in docs here. Okay, and now we can build our list of books. First of all, we need to save the data from the response into state variable, and I'm going to check the docs about fetch API, and let's see. And also would be good to check the response if a response was okay, and also we can then get JSON data from response. And I'm going to just copy this code, and I can remove this console log and pass my code here. Okay, and I need to change response. And if a response was not okay, I'll provide response status. And now we can retrieve JSON, and this JSON I'll pass to my sandbox, and we'll have JSON, and inside this JSON we have data. Okay, and now we can create a JSX for our list of books, and I'll keep it simple for interview. That would be enough. And I'm going to create an ordered list, and for each element of the list, I'm going to iterate through the array. We have array of books, and I'm going to use map function of the array, and use map. And for each book inside element, I'm going to provide JSX, and I'll add in a list item, and for list item, I'm going to provide some empty line. Okay, and also let's add some h3 header, and inside header, let's check the response of what we have inside books, and inside books we have title, and I'm going to use title book title, and also for item I'm going to use key to avoid some warning, and let me add book ID, and let's check what I have so far, and I need to return JSX, not code. Okay, and let's check, and as you can see we have a list of books, and I can build my JSX further, and also will provide more details like paragraph. Let me add paragraph. Okay, and I'm going to provide author. Okay, and let's check what I have inside data, and for author I'm going to use this field author, and I'm going to provide also genre, and let's check what I have, and I'm going just copy paste, and let's check. Okay, and we have list, and we need to remove this dots, and for that I'll add class name and provide books list, and we need to import our styles. Import books list CSS, and I'll just add one style inside it, and I'll provide list style type, and will provide none. Okay, and let's check again, and as you can see we don't have these dots anymore, and one more thing that we can add, as you saw in docs, it's useful to add try catch. If something goes wrong, we can just provide a message to the user, and we'll not see a breaking interface. And for that, I'm going to add try, and I'll write my code inside try, and for catch, I'll add some error. And let me just provide console error, and I'll add some message error fetching data, and provide error, and I need to add it here. error, and we'll provide it in console error. Okay, and if I change some API, let's check. Let me refresh the page, and as you can see, we don't have a list, but we have errors in console, and we can provide message to the user. And but I'm not going to do it here. And one more thing that I can use object destructor in here. Instead of writing this book, I can just provide ID, tiled, and other fields, and remove this book. Okay, I need comma here. Okay, and let's check. Let me refresh the page, and as you can see, I have response in network, and I can check the data. And let me refresh one more time. And as you can see, I have data, and I have the name and other details about book. Today I'm going to provide and explain the solution to the image carousel React coding interview task. Let's take a look at the design. As you can see, we have some headers, an image, and the buttons previous and next. And when I press next button, I see the next image, and also I can return to previous image by clicking previous button. And also I can navigate between images by clicking the buttons, and then I'll go to the beginning, and also I can go to the end. And let's go to the code and build our application. I launched my Visual Studio Code and opened React Interview Tasks project, and I have project from previous video, and now I'm going to create component for my image carousel. It will be image carousel JSX, and also I need some file for CSS, and it will be image carousel CSS. And now I can create functional component with port function, and we'll create image carousel, and we'll return some JSX. Okay, and let me return JSX. I'll add div and add class name, and it will be carousel. Okay, and now I can provide some header like image carousel, and also I'll add div for image, and we'll add image later, and also I need two buttons for previous, and also for next. Okay, and let me import my image carousel in app.jsx, and I'll replace this book list to image carousel. Okay, and now I can start my dev server with command npm run dev. The project was created with Vite, and open it in the browser. And as you can see, I have header, also text, image, and also button previous and next. And now let's add images, and for images I'm going to use pick some file, and we'll select some images, and as you can see we have a list of images, and I can add several. Okay, returning to the code, and I can hide this panel, and also I need to change the word carousel. Might I a mistake, and let's fix it. Okay, and also here, and now I can provide an array of images, and let me create some const images, and it will be array of images, and let's go to the site, and we'll copy some link addresses. Okay, and we'll provide it here, and also change width to 600 and height to 400. Okay, and also I need more images, and I'll just add them and change ID. Okay, and probably the next image. Okay, and now I can provide it as props to my component. So I'll provide images. Okay, and now I can retrieve my props inside my component, and will use object destructoring and extract images. Okay, and now I can use these images to provide URL for some image tag. And let me create image. And for source, I'll provide images, and let's place the first item, and I'll add alt and change to carousel image. And let's check what I have so far. I'm going to refresh, and as you can see, we have the first item. And now we can add index state to change the index of the images, and we'll change it by clicking the button. Okay, and I'm going to add use state hook, and as you can see, import was added, and initially it will be 0, the first item in the array. And let me add names, and it will be index, and function to change the state will be that index, and assign. Okay, and I can provide images index, and now I can add event handlers to on click, and we'll provide some function, and let me add function handle brief, and I'm going to implement it here, and it will be const, and will be arrow function, and let that index, and I'm going to use my previous brief index, and let's check brief index, and if it equals to 0, then we are at the beginning, and we need to go to the end, and I'll use images length and -1, and otherwise we'll just subtract 1 from brief index, and let's check. I'm going to press the button, and as you can see, we can go to previous image, and let me add function on click to handle next, and I'm going to copy this function, and I'll handle next, and this time we need to check if previous index equals to images length -1, and if we are at the end, then we'll go to the beginning, and otherwise we'll just add 1. Okay, and let's check again. I'm going to refresh the page and click next, and as you can see, we can go to the end and to the beginning, and our buttons are working. And now we can add more elements to our array. I'll add 2 more images, and we'll change IDs. Okay, and let's check. Next, and also previous. And now we can just add some styles, and let me add styles for my carousel. I have class name carousel, and we'll provide styles for button. and let me add some padding like 0.5 rem and also 1 rem, and also some margin 0.5 rem, and also make cursor pointer, and also remove border, make it none, and also let's add some border radius 10 pixels. Okay, I'm going to refresh and let's check. And I forgot to import my styles. Let's import image carousel CSS. Let's check again. And as you can see, our styles were added. And let's check again the whole application. I'm going to press next, 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 next. And it's the last image. And as you can see, I was returned to the beginning. And also I can go to the end and navigate between my images. Today I'm going to provide and explain the solution to the search bar React.js coding interview task. Let's take a look at the design. As you can see, we have some headers and an input and a list of items. And when I provide some search value like JS, as you can see, we have filtered items, and I can provide more values, and as you can see, now we have nothing, and let me provide React, and React.js was filtered. And now let's go to the code and implement our challenge. I launched my Visual Studio Code and open a React Interview Tasks project, and let me remove the old component from the previous task. And now I'm going to start my dev server with command npm run dev. The project was created with Vite, and now I can open it in the terminal. And okay, we have only a header, and let me hide this panel. And now I'm going to add new component, and it will be search bar JSX. And also I'll create file for styles search bar CSS. Okay, and now I can create function search bar, and it will be functional component. And let me return some JSX. I'll create a div and add class name search bar, and this div will be a container for our task. And now I can add h2 tag and provide search bar, and okay, now I can export my component, and inside app.jsx I can import my search bar and add it here. Okay, and let's check what I have so far. And we have our search bar h2 header, and let's add the functionality. And for that I need to provide some list of items, and for that I'll just create array. It will be array of strings, and we'll provide some values like HTML, CSS, and also JavaScript. Okay, and I need to comma here, and also let's add React.js, and also we can add Angular and Vue, and also can add Svelte, and let's add more items like Node.js and also Next.js. and I can pass these items as props to my component. Okay, and inside component I can retrieve my items, and I'll use object destructoring, and will retrieve my items here. And let's create a list of items. I'll use unordered list, and let's add code. Items is an array, and I can use map function and to iterate through items, and for each item I'll provide the function that will just return JSX, and I'll use li. Okay, and we'll just provide my item, and let's check. Okay, and we have our items, and probably we need to provide key, because if I open console, you can see this warning. Let's add key, and React will use this key to update the state, and let me add index here. You can provide some ID, but in this task I'll just use index. Okay, and let's check again. Let me refresh the page, and as you can see, we don't have this warning anymore. And now let me add input, where I can provide my value, and type will be text, and let me add some placeholder like search. Okay, let's check, and we have our input, but now we need to add functionality, and let me add a query variable, and I'm going to use hook use state, and as you can see, import was added, and we can provide initial value, and it will be empty string, and as you can see, use state returns a stateful value, and a function to update it, and it returns array, and we can save the data into variables, and for that I'm going to use query, and also function to update my state will be set query. Okay, and now we can use this query inside input, and provide value as query, and also we can add on change handler to change the value of our query when the user provides some value. And I'm going to use event, and for event I'm going to set query, and get the value from event target, and I'll have value. Okay, and let's check. And we can provide value, but we haven't added any functionality to change the items. And let me add one more variable, const filtered items. And in this variable, I'll store the items that we will retrieve after filter function. And I'm going to use filter function of the array. Items is an array of strings, and I can iterate through each item. And for each item, I'll provide the function for my filter, and I'll include the items only if we have the value of query in the item, and for that I'm going to use item, and let's do to lower case. It will be case intensivity, and also now I can use includes function, and let me provide query, and use also to lowercase. Okay, and now we can use filtered items instead of items. And let's check what I have. I'm going to refresh and provide some values. And as you can see, we have some filtered values, and I can provide JS, and looks good so far. And now we can add styles, and for that I'm going to import my search bar, CSS, and let's use this class name and add some styles, and I'm going to add styles for an ordered list, and I'll add list style type and provide none, and also I'm going to add styles to input, and we'll add padding like 0.5 rem and also 0.7 rem for left right, and let's check. Okay, and as you can see, the styles were changed, and let me check the functionality, and I can provide view, and as you can see, the items were filtered, and everything looks good. Today I'm going to provide and explain the solution to the tabs React.js live coding interview question. Let's take a look at the design. As you can see, we'll have some headers, 3 tabs, and content. And when I click on tab 2, the content is changing, and as you can see, we have tab 2 marked as active, and also I can click on tab 3, and content was changed, and tab 3 is active now, and I can return to tab 1 and tab 3. I launched my Visual Studio Code and have a React Interview Tasks project, and I have previous task about search bar, and now I'm going to create a new component, and it will be tabs, and file will be tabs.jsx, and also I will need some tabs CSS file for styles. Okay, and now I can create functional component function tabs and return some JSX. Let me create container, and inside the container I'm going to provide h2 tag, and let's add tabs. Okay, and now I'm going to export it, and I can close this component, and inside app.jsx I'm going to import my tabs from components tabs, and instead of search bar I'll use tabs, and remove these items and here. Okay, and now I can run my dev server. The project was created with Vite, and I can run command npm run dev to start dev server and open my project in browser. Okay, and let me open this and return JSX because I forgot to return, and let's check again. Okay, and we have our header, and let's add some tabs, and for that I'm going to create array, and it will be array of objects, and let me provide const tabs and create array, and each object will have a label, and I'll provide tab 1, and also let's add some content, and I can use div tag and close tag and provide text content of tab 1, and I'm going to copy paste this object and just change to tab 2, and for interview question that would be enough. And now we can pass our tabs to component using props. Okay, and now let me hide panel. And now in tabs we can retrieve, in the component tabs we can retrieve our prop, tabs prop using object destructoring. And now I can add some div and provide some class name, and let me add tab buttons. And tabs is an array of objects, and for array I can use map function, and I'll provide code tabs, and I'll use map function of the array to iterate through each tab. And for each tab I'm going to provide JSX, and I'll add button, and inside button I'll provide a label tab, and we have label inside object. And let's check what we have so far. And as you can see, we have 3 buttons. And let me open developer tools. And as you can see, I have this warning and about key. And let's fix it. I'll provide index. And you can add index to object, but for question I'll use just index from array. And for each button we can provide key, and it will be indexed. Okay, let's check. Let me refresh, and as you can see, we don't have this warning anymore. And now let's add functionality that when clicking on tab 2 or tab 3, I'll get my content. And first of all, we need to add content here, and I'll do it inside div. And let me provide some tab, and I need some active index, and let me provide content on the first item, and let's add some class name. We'll add styles later. Probably for the interview you don't need styles, but I'll add them. Okay, and as you can see, we have content of tab 1, but buttons don't work for now. And let's add functionality for our buttons. And for that, I'm going to add state variable with hook useState. As you can see, import was added, and initially it will be 0. And as you can see, useState returns a stateful value and a function to update it, and it returns array. And I'm going to use active tab variable to store the state, and function will be set active tab, and assign to useState hook what it returns. And now I can change 0 in my tabs to active tab, and I will display content of active tab. And inside button I can add on click event, and add event handler. And on click I'm going to change active tab to set active tab to my index. We are using array, and we can just set the index of the element. And let's check. I'm going to refresh the page, press on tab 2, and as you can see, we have content of tab 2, and now we have content of tab 3, and I can return to tab 1 or tab 3. And for the interview, it probably would be enough, but I'm going to add some styles, and for that I'm going to add import and import my tabs CSS, and let's add styles. First of all, I'm going to use class tab buttons, and for that class I'm going to add some margin like 0.5 rem for top and bottom and 0 for left right. Let's check. Okay, and we have some margin here, and let me add styles for tab content, and it's a class, and for tab content let's add some padding, and it will be 0.5 rem for all sides, and also let me add some border up and 1 pixel solid and some gray color. Let's check, and as you can see we have border and phasing. Okay, and also let me add styles for button, and for button we can add active indicator to mark active button, and for that let me add styles for class for button, class name, and provide button, and let's add styles for that button, for some button. Okay, and for button let me add padding like 0.5 rem and 1 rem for left right, and also let's add margin right and 0.1 rem, and also we can add some border like 1 pixel solid transparent, and let's make cursor pointer. Let's check. Okay, we have styles for buttons, but we need to add some styles for active button, and for that I'm going to add class active to tab button. Will provide active, and for active button let's change border color to gray color, and also change background color to white color. Okay, and also make font weight bold. Okay, and now let's add our active class to our button, and for that I'm going to add cut here. Okay, and now let's check if we have active button or our index equals to active tab. Then I'm going to provide active class. Let me change here. Okay. And I'll use condition, and if index equals to active tab, then I'll provide active class, and if not, then I'll provide empty value. Okay, and now let's check. I'm going to refresh the page, and as you can see, we have active tab 1, and we have white background, and I'm going to press tab 2, and the active class applied to tab 2, and we have content for the tab, and the same for tab 3, and we can switch between tabs. And that's all that I had for today. If you like the video, subscribe to my DevWeb App channel, like the video. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.